Today we are here to look at the Girard test box, and we're going to demonstrate how to set it up and test this 5 psi smart vent. So here we have the Girard test box, and the first thing we're going to do is apply some air pressure to it. So we have this fitting right in the back, and we plug in the hose. Okay, now we adjust the pressure here. We have this regulator with this knob here turned in the release position, this one turned off. We adjust the regulator, and right now it's set to around 25. We'd like to get it up to 60 psi. So you turn this knob here, okay, 60, and then press it in. When you push it in, it locks in position. Okay, now what we need to do next is turn on the gauge. It's a digital gauge, Ashcroft. So you press and hold in the on button. It goes through a cycle, checks to make sure everything's working correctly. See, right now it says PSI, so those are the units, pounds per square inch. We're going to demonstrate how to change the units. That's the button on the far right, and you can toggle it around to see different units. That's bar, and that's kg, kPa, inches of mercury, psi, bar. If you want to set it to bars, for example, you press and hold the button for about 3 seconds and it'll lock in at bar. But our test will be in psi, so we're going to set it back to psi there. Press and hold in, and there it's set. If it's, it's off a little bit slightly, so the button on the top right is to zero in the units. So Chris is going to demonstrate that. Push and hold, and it zeroes it up. Okay, so now we're ready to test this box to see if there's any leaks. What we're going to do is install this pressure vent here, and we're going to apply a light amount of pressure and then use a soap spray to test for leaks. Okay, so we put this one on PSI. There's PSI and vacuum. We're doing pressure, and we slowly turn this knob past the hold position, and we see we're getting about we'll put about 5 psi, and now we're going to spray this down with some soap spray, check for leaks. So we check all the joints carefully, spraying it down, and we're looking for leaks. Oh, look at that, we got a big leak there. Okay, so we need to tighten that down a little bit. We'll use this pipe wrench to tighten it down. Get a little tighter there. Okay, good. And we'll retest it again. Put some pressure back on. And we'll spray it down again to see if it's leaking. Good, leak's gone. All right, so now we have a good sealed unit. We know that all the joints are leak tight, okay? So we're gonna go through a test right now, and we'll release that pressure. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for the set to discharge or start to discharge pressure. And since this is a 5 psi vent, it should open or start to discharge someplace between 4 and 6 psi. So we're going to demonstrate that right now. We'll put a light amount of pressure on there and see. We slowly turn that, and we see where it starts to discharge here. See, the gauge is slowly moving up there, and it looks like it starts to discharge around 5.1, 5.2. It says 5.16. So it won't build up any pressure beyond there. And what Girard equipment does, they apply pressure until it opens and the gauge doesn't go higher. And you need to slowly turn that handle to get that to happen. Now we're going to put this back into the hold position and see where it holds at, or we call that reseating or resetting. Now we're watching the gauge there, and you see it's at about 4.10, 4.09. What we do is we wait and time it for approximately 30 seconds and see where that is in that amount of time. And right now we have about 15 seconds up. So we're going to wait till 30 seconds and read the gauge. It's still slowly dropping off, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And those are really small units, 3.95. If you had an analog gauge, you wouldn't even be able to read that. So at the end of 30 seconds, we have 3.93 psi. So we're going to release it now and remove the pressure. We go to the release position there. Pressure goes down to 0. Now we're going to check vacuum to make sure vacuum's okay. So on the right hand knob, we're going to turn it to vacuum selection. And we're going to reset this gauge here to inches of mercury. Right there, INHG. HG is the element abbreviation for mercury, okay? And what we're going to do now is we're going to apply a light vacuum to it and see where it actually starts to release that. And it looks like about 1.8 inches of mercury, 2 inches, pretty close to 2 inches. So that's good. Typically these vents are at 2 inches of mercury, plus or minus 1 inch. There's not any regulation that tells us how close it has to be set. So now we'll release the vacuum that we presented to it, and we'll switch this back to PSI in the units. Reset the units to PSI. Okay. There we go. And we switched this knob back to PSI also. So now we're ready to remove the pressure vent. Our test has proven successful.